and welcome. This is the multimedia presentation about a trip to Jack River Ice down off the Denali Highway near Cantwell. During this presentation, I'll talk a little about the logistics of this trip. I'll talk about what the climbing looks like and describe the pitches, and then I'll also present a gear list of what I might bring out on a trip like this. The trail into the Jack River Valley is located off the Denali Highway about 4 miles in from Cantwell, the turn in Cantwell off the Parks Highway. The trailhead is located on the right side or south side of the road, and it's the end of state maintenance in the winter, so that's a clear sign that you're there. There's also a couple informational kiosks there that get you on the right path towards the trail going into Jack River. It cuts across the valley instead of following the river directly, so it's kind of cuts across a shoulder and then you eventually drop down into the Jack River Valley. Trail's pretty straightforward. The first couple miles of land on either side of the trail is owned by the Aetna Corporation, so be respectful of that. And once you get back into the mountains, it's more general Alaska state land. And the trail into the Jack River Falls is about 5.5 miles. And there's lots of different ways to get in there. You know, I've hiked, I've cross-country skied carrying my mountaineering boots and crampons. I've used mountaineering skis. I've used a snow machine to get in there. It's a multi-use trail. I've even considered fat biking in the right conditions. As you get close to the falls, it's really easy to go past it because it's hidden in a little notch there. So just be aware that likely if you've never been out there, you may end up going a little past the falls, looking back and seeing it, and having to cut back on the trail a little bit to get up to the falls. This is a map of the route into the Jack River Falls, and you can see that as it cuts across the valley, it doesn't cross that many contour lines, but you do have one significant up that you go over the shoulder, and from the top there, you'll be looking down into the beautiful Jack River Valley and a fairly steep trail down in. Once you get into the valley, the trail is almost totally flat all the way to the falls. And is typically used enough where the trail is broken and in pretty good condition. As you approach the creek to get up to the falls, the creek can have open spots, as with many waterfall ice climbs, so just be aware of that. But as it gets later in the season, the ice tends to overflow over most of that. The approach up to the first pitch can sometimes involve a little bit of actual climbing. So if you have a new ice climber with you who's never had crampons on or whatever, it's possible you may have to belay this sort of pseudo first pitch or pseudo first section of ice. I've never really seen it formed up where it was more than most ice climbers would solo up, being like a WI1 or something like that. As you approach the first pitch, it stands out. It's a huge, typically huge, fat 50-meter pitch of pretty steep ice. It generally is grade WI4. Towards the top, depending on if you're early season or not, the top of the first pitch, the last 15 feet, can be kind of thin, hard to protect, and I've even had it where there was flowing water up there. So that is a potential variable there. But at the end of the first pitch, it rolls over onto a nice flat belay ledge that's easy to set an anchor on. Most people use a V-thread type anchor if you were to repel that first pitch. Being a 50-meter pitch of ice, you're going to need to consider what ropes to have. And most people would use either 2 50, 60-meter ropes or maybe a set of doubles or twins to be most efficient for this climb. Many climbers do also just choose to climb the first pitch of ice here because it's really the best pitch of ice in the area. The second pitch of ice is right above the first pitch of ice. Sometimes you have to walk through a little snow to get to it, but it's right there, and it just tends to be more variable. It has more steps in it, and the degree of difficulty varies quite a bit year to year and season to season. So I mostly have seen it in like WI2, WI3 conditions. And this is at the top of that second pitch is where most people end. So it's a fun little addition to your adventure up that main pitch of ice there at Jack River. There is a third pitch of ice at Jack River, but it's rarely climbed. It's a big curtain up high in the gully. So what it involves is when you top out on the second pitch and bring your second up, basically you have to kind of walk or post hole up several hundred yards up a gully. And it brings you out into a big basin that has a cliff face that's up and right, climbers right there, and a 15 to 20 meter, pretty darn steep, typically WI3, WI4 pitch of ice is located up there. It's very different than the pitch of ice in down below, which tends to be a beautiful blue color. The rocks leach out a very yellow-orange rustiness, and so it's a very orange pitch of ice, and it has even at times been called the piss curtain because it kind of looks that color. And one of the big variables with that, besides the post hole up to it, is as you come out into the bowl, there's a big snow slope above you that's that 30 to 40 degree perfect avalanche slope that you have to climb up. And if there was a problem, it's a huge terrain trap bringing all that snow down into the gully. And the last time I was there, literally we walked over avalanche debris in the gully to get to that slope and up to that pitch of ice. That said, the climbing's all right up there, and assuming conditions are stable and you're willing to deal with that variable, it could be worth your time to continue up. Typically, a V-thread might be made on top of that pitch. It is possible to continue up and climb down around the snow slopes around there as well if you didn't want to do a rappel type descent, but it definitely would be an adventure descent trying to get down that way. These are a couple pictures that show belaying on the first pitch and belaying up on the second pitch. One of the best things about Jack River ice is where you are, is the sense of scenery in the mountains. You can see behind the belayers here that there's some awesome mountain terrain, a really, really nice place to be. And the ice climbing there is just a bonus to being out in the mountains. So I assume that most of you who are going out to climb a WI3, WI4 pitches of ice kind of have a feel for what type of gear you'd bring. But I put a gear list together just for some of the specifics as far as making sure you thought about having some TAT and a V-thread tool, things like that that aren't required everywhere for this, and making sure you have the appropriate ropes, rope lengths, and whatnot. So if you're interested, you can check out these gear lists. This would be like what I consider personal, and this list might be what I'd consider more in the realm of kind of group gear that would benefit the group a bit more. So just some thoughts there to help you along. Make sure you don't forget anything on your way out there. On this page are the links to this presentation if you want to download it, or also have the gear list and the map I had up in this presentation all available if that helps you to get out there and enjoy the Jack River ice. Thanks for checking out this presentation. One last piece of advice is as you enter the Jack River Valley, on skiers left as you ski out the valley or up the valley, you'll see several little smears of ice, and quite a few people have gotten suckered into going checking them out thinking it was Jack River ice. It's further up the valley and around a corner in a very distinct canyon, so make sure to, if that's your goal, to get to the real ice there. Have a great trip and enjoy your climbing.